With that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat.
Let me ask you a question right off the bat. Have you ever seen a moment in sports that makes you stop whatever you're doing, lean in and say, wait, did that really just happen? Because that's exactly the kind of moment we're talking about today. We have an all-time legend of the game, Sheryl Miller, coming in hot and calling out critics with 2 unforgettable words.
Some of your peers, they will recognize, her game, but they won't recognize her impact.
Right.
How can you separate the two? It's kind of
hard,
right?
I used and Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like, come on, you big dummies.
Big dummies. And who's the target of all these big dummy comments? Sheryl Swoopes, another WNBA icon who's been going after Caitlin Clark, an exciting new star setting records right and left. It's a collision of eras, a head-on clash of personalities, and it's made the entire basketball community perk up their ears and ask, what in the world is going on here? I'm about to walk you through every jaw-dropping detail of this story, from the moment Sheryl Swoopes started hurling wild accusations about Caitlin Clark's stats and age, to the point where Sheryl Miller, one of the most respected voices in basketball history, stepped up and basically said, enough is enough.
3-time Player of the Year, 2-time National Championship, 2-time Tournament MVP, first woman to dunk in an organized game, gold medalist. Thank you for making time. Welcome to the show, Sheryl Miller.
If you're a fan of drama, if you love hearing about legends going head-to-head, or if you just want to know why Caitlin Clark has become the center of a never-ending whirlwind of controversy, stay right here. You're in the perfect place.
Let's also talk about how much more experience that gives you over other players coming in, right? So people say, dang, like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old.
Here's the situation in a nutshell. Sheryl Swoopes has been less than impressed with Caitlin Clark. We're talking about claims that Clark is a lot older than she really is, that she's basically just padding her stats, that she's getting more shots than anyone in history, and by implication that her record-breaking achievements aren't as legitimate as everyone is making them out to be.
Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
Carry on.
I know you like that.
Hell yeah.
I said that because when she comes to the league, regardless of what team she goes to that has vets on that team, she probably ain't gonna get 40 shots a game.
Now we should note that Swoopes has the resume to speak her mind. She's a multiple-time WNBA champion, a household name for women's basketball fans, and someone who's definitely earned the right to an opinion. But the problem is this: when you make a claim that someone's 25 years old when she's only 22, or you say she's shooting 40 times a game when, in reality, the average is more like the low 20s, people are gonna call you out. And that's exactly what's been happening. But it all came to a head on a show where Sheryl Miller just laid it all out, unfiltered, raw, and quite frankly, hilarious. She literally told Swoopes and other critics of Caitlin Clark, come on, you big dummies. Now, you might be wondering, is there real animosity here, or is this just playful banter among legends?
You asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
Okay.
Right? So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year, and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly a broken record?
Let's put it this way. When the dust settled, Sheryl Swoopes was actually taken off the commentary assignment for a major game, replaced by another legend, Nancy Lieberman, who basically came in and said, hey, look, we all have our opinions, but facts matter, and if you can't get your facts straight, we have a problem. But let's start from the beginning. Why was Sheryl Swoopes so critical of Caitlin Clark in the first place? One of the big issues seemed to be the notion that Clark was older than everyone else in college, and that somehow gave her an unfair advantage. Swoopes made a statement along the lines of, you have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old, which implied Clark had extra time in college, thanks to COVID eligibility or whatever. But the real story is that Clark was only 22. People get fifth years, sure, but that doesn't automatically make them 25. It just just means they might be 23 instead of 22. For someone like Clark, who wrapped up college in 4 years anyway, the entire argument sort of fell apart. Then came the assertion that Clark takes 40 shots a game.
Didn't say she wouldn't be good. What I said was I didn't think Caitlin or Angel would come into the league and dominate immediately, which I don't think either of them did.
Respectfully, there is absolutely no way, even when we're trying to sit here and play semantics about dominating, there's no way that anyone could ever leave this season in saying that both Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese didn't dominate. You would have to further explain what dominance means for you to not sit here and say that a player who is leading the league in assists while averaging 19 to 20 points didn't dominate that season.
Listen, if you've watched Caitlin Clark at Iowa or in the WNBA, you know she loves to shoot. There's no question she's gonna let it fly from 3, from mid-range, from basically anywhere. But 40 shots, that's an incredibly high number even at the rec league level, let alone elite college basketball. When people actually checked the stats, she was more in the low 20s, 22, 23 shots on average. That's still a lot of attempts, but nowhere near 40. So the storyline of Clark is hogging the ball, overshadowing her teammates, and artificially inflating her stats just didn't hold up under any kind of scrutiny.
I've known Cheryl since she was in college. I helped do her shoe deal with Nike in 1993, took her to her first SBs. I've known Cheryl, I've coached her, have a lot of respect for her. I called her when Caitlin was still playing at Iowa and she had just broken Maravich's record. And it was all over the place, as you and I have discussed, that, you know, there was this quote by Sheryl that said, you know, Caitlin was, 25 years old. She was, however old, 24 years old. She was a fifth-year senior. Right. She was taking 40 shots a game. Her records were illegitimate.
And you might say, well, maybe that's just a little bit of exaggeration on Swoopes' part. Maybe she was just trying to make a point. But as Nancy Lieberman pointed out, if you're going to be a broadcaster or a public figure speaking on these issues, you owe it to the players and to the fans to get your facts right. Otherwise, you're shaping a narrative that can tarnish someone's reputation, especially a young star like Caitlin Clark, who's just starting her career.
I got off the treadmill and I called her as a friend and I said, you can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion. And, you might like Boston, I might like the Yankees. It's okay to have difference of opinions. Well, she got upset with me on the phone. And I was like, Cheryl, I'm not doing anything to hurt you. I'm just sharing. We're talking. And so our relationship it pretty much is not happening at this point. I tried to talk to her at the Final Four. Right. She didn't want to talk to me. My life's going to be good or great with or without Sheryl Swoopes in my life.
Now, another major criticism from Sheryl Swoopes involved the idea that Clark needed extra time to break college scoring records. At one point, Swoopes said something to the effect of, if you're going to break a record legitimately, you should do it in the same time frame as the person who set it. That person in this case was Kelsey Plum, who set the NCAA scoring record in 4 years.
Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like, come on, you big dummies. Is she getting hyped? Yes. Yeah. But she was in the backyard. She was putting in the same time, sometimes maybe more than you were.
Right.
I can't fault her for what she was given.
Clark actually broke the record in 4 years too. It wasn't that she stuck around for a 5th year. So again, the numbers simply didn't align with Swoopes' claims.
Look, as much as she was given, you can't tell me if that door would have swung the other way where she didn't live up to the hype.
Right.
Come on, folks are still waiting for her to fall.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yep.
So, with that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
All of this culminated when Clark graduated and went on to the WNBA, where plenty of folks, including Swoopes, said, let's see how she does in the pros. Fair point, a lot of college stars don't necessarily adapt to the professional level right away, but if you actually watched Clark's rookie season, she was not only piling up points in the high teens, she was also dishing out around 8 assists per game, which was near the top of the league. That's not dominating purely with scoring, that's controlling the game by setting up teammates teammates left and right. She ended up taking Rookie of the Year honors fairly comfortably, which made that storyline of she's not going to dominate fade into the background real fast.
You recently coached the WNBA All-Star game. You spent some time with Caitlin Clark.
Best coaching job ever.
Best coaching job
Best
ever.
coaching job ever.
Being around Caitlin Clark, how was the experience with her? She's such a big star. I mean, the sky's the limit for her. To be around her, just talk about the type of person she is, how much she loves the game.
I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my
skin.
color.
Yeah.
That leads us to the big showdown moment. Cheryl Miller steps into the spotlight. Now, if you don't know who Cheryl Miller is, you should. She's one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised.
Mm-hmm.
And people just having, she brought some on herself a little bit because she's cocky for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. Confident.
And I love that about her. But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't the truth.
Male or female, she was so dominant in college that she won the Naismith Player of the Year 3 times, led USC to 2 national championships, won an Olympic gold medal, and then became a tremendous coach and broadcaster herself. She's also the sister of Reggie Miller, another Hall of Famer, but she's absolutely a legend in her own right. So when Cheryl Miller talks, people listen. She comes out and basically says, look, I've coached Caitlin Clark. I've seen her work ethic. I've seen her attitude, and let me tell you, she deserves every bit of hype she's getting. Then comes the moment that had everyone buzzing. She addressed the folks throwing shade at Clark, particularly Swoopes, and said, come on, you big dummies. Is she getting hyped? Yes, but she's earned it. It was such a raw, unfiltered statement that the internet practically exploded. You had fans cheering. You had critics doubling down. You had neutrals going, did Cheryl Miller just say that? Now, you might think Miller was just playing cheerleader for Caitlin Clark, but if you dig deeper, you see that Miller was also highlighting a much bigger point.
She was getting hit with everything left and right, and I just said, I hugged her, I said, I'm so proud of you. I go, savor this, use this as a formula. I said, but keep being you. I said, no matter what, keep being you.
Clark's presence in the league is actually benefiting everyone. She's bringing in more eyeballs, more attention, and potentially higher salaries in the future. Miller basically said, you big dummies, are you getting paid now? Right, then maybe you shouldn't be complaining. Her perspective is that any star who elevates the league's profile can put more money in the pockets of other players. She pointed out that critics like Swoopes, who are taking issue with Clark, should actually be grateful that a new star is lighting up the league and attracting fresh fans.
It's a crown that she's wearing right now.
Right.
And it wasn't something that she self-anointed herself. It's something that's been placed on her head, and I hope people understand that. But it's everything that she's dealing with.
Another part of Miller's defense touched on the emotional toll these criticisms can take on a young player. Miller recalled a moment when she embraced Clark after a big win for the Indiana Fever, telling her, I'm proud of you, keep being you.
And I gave her the biggest hug that I could. And when she saw me, she was like, oh man, finally somebody I see that's on my side.
Right, they could relate.
The one thing that I said to her, and she was heading into her senior year, was have fun. No matter all the static, just make sure you find that quiet place.
She described how Clark almost seemed relieved to have someone in her corner, someone who wouldn't second guess everything she does on the court. Think about it. You're 22, you've just entered the pros, and one of the greatest players ever is basically telling you day after day that your records are invalid, that you're older than you say you are, that you're not going to dominate. That's got to weigh heavily on anyone's psyche, no matter how confident or talented you are.
You can set a screen for Caitlin. Caitlin don't need a screen. Caitlin's got great handles. The one thing that I don't think people really appreciate about that young lady's game, she can pass the ball.
She can't pass. She got great assists.
She
the bounce pass is powerful.
which is almost non-existent in the game.
Yet, amidst all this drama, Clark managed to keep her composure, let her game speak for itself, and even publicly showed admiration for legends like Sheryl Miller. One of the most telling moments came during the 2024 All-Star Game, when Miller actually coached Clark. That game gave Miller a front row seat to see not just the highlight reel shots.
I love what they've done for the women's game from a collegiate level to now, and it's working. And it was only a matter of time. And great narratives, great storylines. But now the bottom line comes down to one thing. It's about basketball, and it's about wins.
What makes Miller's perspective especially valuable is her unique position at the intersection of player development and media narratives. During the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game, she witnessed firsthand Clark's greatness in real time. In one straightforward observation, she dismantled months of false narratives being created by the old guard about Clark.
What advice, if any, did you share in that meeting with Caitlin? Because I know that she spoke very highly of you, got great respect for you.
I've known Cheryl for a little while now. I think her energy, that's what I love about her. Like, it's just contagious, and it's fun.
But also the behind-the-scenes look at Clark's leadership, her passing ability, and her genuine passion for the game. Miller walked away saying things like, she can pass in 3D. She sees angles most players don't see.
I've known Cheryl for a little while now. I think her energy, that's what I love about her. Like, it's just contagious, and it's fun.
She's better defensively than people realize. If you're a young star trying to prove yourself, getting compliments like that from Sheryl Miller is basically the ultimate validation.
Getting to be around those two people that have done so much for the game, for me is super special. Like, there's still two people that I really look up to and idolize and appreciate everything that they've done, and for them to have this moment too and be a part of it, like, it's just super cool.
Now, we should be clear, Sheryl Swoopes has insisted she doesn't hate Caitlin Clark and that she never said Clark wouldn't be good. But there's a difference between constructive skepticism, like saying she's going to need time to adjust to the league, which is fair, and outright peddling misinformation. When you say she's 25 or she's shooting 40 times a game, that's not an opinion, it's just incorrect data. The pushback then wasn't about whether or not Clark is a generational talent, it became about whether or not some of these legends of the game were giving false impressions to the public. And that's where Nancy Lieberman comes in. She wasn't shy about calling up Swoopes and basically saying, you can have your opinion, but make sure you get the numbers right.
Holy smokes, what an opportunity. And I was excited, like really, really excited, till I found out that the team I'm coaching wants to beat the brakes off our Olympic team. I'm like, okay, the pressure's on. So now we got a game, folks. We're going to have a game, but it's been fantastic.
According to Lieberman, Swoopes didn't take that critique very well, and their relationship soured. Lieberman later talked about how she tried to approach Swoopes at the women's Final Four, and Swoopes wasn't interested in having a conversation. All of this contributed to Swoopes' removal from at least one broadcasting assignment. Whether or not that was the direct reason, it certainly didn't help matters.
And people that came well before today's game, they were skilled, they were incredible. The spotlight is now enhanced, and give these women credit. They have certainly elevated the game, but there are some truly, truly great players that could play today that played yesterday.
And you know what? And I love the way that you said piggyback, because in no way, shape, or form am I not appreciative of where the game is at and the exposure, because we get exposure. Everybody forgot Lynette Woodard until Caitlin Clark broke her scoring record.
In the meantime, Caitlin Clark just kept doing her thing. She kept piling up points and assists, leading the Indiana Fever to more wins than critics expected, and forging a strong bond with some of the league's established stars. That's another aspect Miller touched on. The Indiana Fever have quietly assembled a young core that's both hungry and fearless. They have high basketball IQ, they're not afraid of facing top-tier opponents, and they're fully behind their rookie sensation. Miller sees real championship potential brewing there, maybe not immediately, but certainly down the line. And she doesn't say that casually. When someone with multiple national championships and an Olympic gold medal sees a bright future, you pay attention. That synergy between Clark and Miller also has people talking about a deeper mentorship that could elevate Clark's game to even greater heights. Imagine having a once-in-a-generation basketball mind guiding you through the rough patches, telling you exactly what to work on, what to ignore, and how to use adversity to your advantage. That's a priceless resource for a young player who might otherwise feel alone against an onslaught of critics. Miller's been there. She knows what it's like to face pressure, to be a lightning rod for comments and expectations. She was the biggest star in women's hoops at a time when women's hoops didn't get anywhere near the attention it does now. She's lived through that spotlight, and she's determined to help Clark thrive under it. Miller also pointed out something incredibly important. The media can spin a narrative that's far from the truth. She said she was proud to see that the negative narrative around Clark wasn't matching who Clark actually is. Sometimes fans see highlight reels or read tweets and assume they know everything about a player's character. But Miller had the chance to witness Clark in practices, in huddles, in the locker room, and came away with a very different impression, one that's far more positive than the selfish shot chucker label that some people were trying to stick on her. Another compelling angle to this story is how it might influence future generations of female athletes. Having two legendary Sheryls at odds, Swoopes on one side and Miller on the other, forces the basketball community to confront the importance of mentorship and accurate storytelling. Do young players see these icons tearing each other down, or do they see them ultimately come together for the good of the game? Right now, it looks like Swoopes and Miller are on very different pages when it comes to Caitlin Clark, and while Swoopes is certainly entitled to her opinions, her claims have repeatedly been debunked, which makes the public wonder if there's something else going on beneath the surface, some personal issue or misunderstanding that keeps fueling these critiques. Meanwhile, Sheryl Miller's stance is crystal clear. Caitlin Clark is the real deal. She's confident without apology, she's good for the league, and she's elevating the profiles and paychecks of everyone around her, including potential critics. Miller is even drawing parallels to her own experience, feeling hated for reasons that go beyond the court, yet using that negativity as fuel to become even better. She suggests Clark should do the same, embrace the headlines, the talk, the back and forth, and let it drive her to focus on what really counts. The game. All of this sets an absolutely riveting stage for the future of the WNBA. You have a new superstar in Clark, a storied franchise like the Indiana Fever trying to climb back to the top, and these Hall of Famers like Sheryl Miller cheering her on, highlighting that she has the potential to be not just an amazing scorer, but also one of the best passers we've seen in a while. On the flip side, you have critics like Sheryl Swoopes who might continue to question Clark's achievements. Regardless of which side you land on, you can't deny that the conversation has people riveted. And let's be honest, women's basketball is gaining momentum in ways we haven't seen before. The college game has been setting viewership records, the WNBA is attracting more sponsorships, and players like Caitlin Clark are starting to become household names. Sheryl Miller's message is, let's not waste this moment by turning on each other with false narratives. Instead, let's harness it to grow the league, inspire the next generation of players, and remind everyone that women's basketball is absolutely worth watching. But people love drama, right? So the friction between Swoopes and Miller isn't going away anytime soon. Fans are already picking sides on social media, with some saying Swoopes is just telling it like it is, and others saying, nope, she's just jealous of the hype Clark's getting. Then you have a whole camp of fans who idolize both Swoopes and Miller and are torn about this entire situation. The one thing that seems unanimous though is that people are paying attention, and that attention translates to more eyes on the WNBA, more conversation around the games, and more respect for the skills on display. That, ironically, feeds right back into what Sheryl Miller was saying. Caitlin Clark is generating excitement that lifts the whole league, so here we are, with the stage set. Caitlin Clark, after an impressive rookie season, heads into the next year with a massive chip on her shoulder, fueled by every negative comment or false statement thrown her way. Meanwhile, Sheryl Miller continues to offer her brand of tough love and unwavering support, telling Clark to keep her head up, stay confident, and keep entertaining the fans who come out to see her. And it's not just about words either. Miller's presence at practices, her voice in the ear of both Clark and her teammates, her willingness to step in and say, these are the facts, cut the nonsense. All of that is shaping the Fever's culture and identity. The potential outcome? We might see a young Indiana team that leaps ahead of schedule, winning more games, possibly making a playoff push, and establishing itself as a real contender, especially if Clark continues to refine her passing, defense, and leadership. Think about how lethal it is for a team to have a guard who can easily put up 20 points, find open teammates for easy buckets, and pull defenses out of shape with her shooting range. If the rest of the roster clicks, if they trust each other, if the coaching staff harnesses Clark's skill set the right way, we could see something truly special. And what about Sheryl Swoopes in all of this? Will she double down and continue criticizing? Will she backtrack and say, all right, I was mistaken about the numbers, but I still have concerns about this or that? We don't know. But even if she does keep criticizing, the conversation has shifted. More people are calling her out on inaccuracies. More fans are saying, actually, Clark broke those records fair and square. And yes, she's dominating. The narrative has changed from is Clark really that good to when will Swoopes own up to some of these fact-check failures? At the end of the day, it might all be water under the bridge if Clark continues to shine. Winners typically get the last word. If Clark keeps racking up assists, burying three-pointers, and helping her team get closer to a championship, the naysayers will have less and less to cling to. Meanwhile, Cheryl Miller will look prescient, like someone who saw the true extent of Clark's talent and recognized the intangible qualities that make her special. That's the story we've been waiting to see unfold. A story that doesn't just revolve around basketball X's and O's, but also the human elements of ego, legacy, and the complicated bonds between legends and newcomers. In a sense, it's a story as old as sports itself. The new kid on the block meets the icon. Some icons cheer for her, others try to knock her down a peg, and we get front row seats to all the fireworks. The only question left is, how far will Caitlin Clark go? And how many of these critics will be forced to admit they got her all wrong? But that's enough speculation for now. One thing's for sure, the WNBA just got a jolt of adrenaline thanks to the tension between Sheryl Swoopes and Cheryl Miller's scorching big dummies retort. Either you're on Team Clark or you're not, but no one can deny how fascinating it is to watch. The next few seasons could be pivotal for the Indiana Fever, for the growth of the league, and for how we remember the careers of both these legendary Cheryls. If Clark turns out to be the unstoppable force Miller thinks she is, we could see a whole new dynasty bloom in Indiana. If there's a meltdown, then perhaps Swoopes can say, "See, I told you so," and have the final word. For now, though, the momentum is undoubtedly on Clark's side, and Miller's glowing endorsements are fueling fans' excitement. Everyone's buzzing about the possibility of a brand new era for women's basketball, an era defined by generational talents like Clark, guided by mentors like Miller, and hopefully free of the fact-check errors that got us here in the first place. Maybe we'll look back and realize that all this drama was actually a gift, amplifying interest in the women's game to heights we haven't seen before. Or maybe we'll just remember the epic line from Cheryl Miller that set the internet ablaze. Come on, you big dummies. And there you have it. The emotional roller coaster, the heated debates, the shocking sound bites, and the bright future that just might unite a new wave of fans around one of the most captivating stars to hit the court in years. The next chapters of this story are being written with every dribble, every assist, every behind-the-back pass, and every moment Clark silences another critic. If you didn't care about the WNBA before, you might want to start paying attention now, because when legends collide and fresh talents ascend, it's not just a game, it's a spectacle, and that's what keeps us coming back for more.